Their response, when others heard this, verse 18, they stopped objecting and began praising God. They said, we can see that God has also given the Gentiles the privilege of repenting of their sins and receiving eternal life. As funny as a line as that is, that the privilege of repenting the sins is also for those guys way over there. They get it. And they begin to change things. And it's, like I said, it's this struggle that's going to go on and on and on through the rest of the New Testament. But they get it, and they start to go along with it. And they say, God has given this salvation to the whole world, not just us. See, all of this time, they were told that they were the chosen people. And all of a sudden, God says, I'm also going to the unchosen. You were always the chosen people to be a priestly nation and to be going out into the world already. I never said, keep it for yourselves. I said, go out into all the world. This is the message for everyone. Back to Ironside real quick. And this is why I read the King James, because the creeping the things was important. I have heard my mother tell that when my own dear father was dying, this passage was running through his mind, and he kept repeating, a great sheet and wild beasts and he couldn't seem to get the next word out, but went back and started over, and once more came to that same place. A friend finally bent over and whispered, John, it says creeping things. Oh yes, he said, that is how I got in. Just a poor, good-for-nothing creeping thing. But I got in, saved by grace. No matter how low, vile, or utterly useless and corrupt or unclean, the soul that trusts Jesus is in that sheet let down from heaven and will have a place in glory by and by. See, we find ourselves so often identifying with the Jewish side of these stories, and we tend to forget we're the Gentiles. We didn't grow up with the kosher faith, with the kosher side of things. We didn't grow up having to observe Leviticus. We didn't grow up having to go through all of those Jewish processes. We're the Gentiles. We're the ones that crawled in on our bellies onto that sheet. Even if you grew up in the church, you're the Gentile. We're the ones that this is all about. Who are we to get in the way of all of that? I've got one more story. PowerPoint's going to say something else, but I've got one more story. I'm going to skip the second one. It's back in Luke. You don't have to go there. But this brings us all the way full circle to the sibling rivalry that I just don't get sometimes. His son said to him, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. See, there's this story. There's this story about a guy who's got 2 kids. And one of them goes off and he squanders this wealth. He tells his dad, I wish you were dead. Give me all of my money now. And he goes off and he lives this poor, pathetic, sinful life. Maybe it's the life of an artist. Maybe he finds himself in drugs. Maybe he finds himself, well, he does find himself in this world of sin that is dragging him down and brings him on the brink of death. And he finally comes back and he says, I am no longer worthy of being your son. Sorry, I skipped you. Father, I have sinned against both you and heaven, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servants, Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. Kill the calf that we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. For this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found. So the party began. The party began. This is a great thing. This is a happy thing. This is a wonderful thing. The sinner that has been out there in the dark and the cold and living this horrible, sinful life that has brought them to the brink of death has come back to God, and God says, "You're mine, and I love you," and it changes like that. They don't have to start living this brand new life all of a sudden. They have to come back and beg forgiveness. See, God's grace is so powerful that it forgives us in a second. And His love is so wonderful that it prevents us from staying in that sinful place. That it brings us into a place of love. That it brings us into those arms and says, "Let me help you be this new person." It's a process. And it's going to be a process. That's the starting point for the story for us here. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. See, we don't ever read on with this story. We always stop because that's where it's happy. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house. He asked one of the servants, "What's going on?" "Your brother is back," he was told, "and your father has killed the fattened calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return." The older brother was angry and would not go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, "All these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to do. And in all that time you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf?" His father said to him, "Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found." And that's where the story ends. There's no resolution. We're left with a father and an older brother fighting outside a party. So the question is, how are we going to respond? This vision has happened for Peter. God has said, there is clean and there is unclean, and I'm calling it something different. I am bringing my salvation for the whole world. And it's on you to be the hands and the feet to take it there. You cannot be angry about this. This isn't a sibling rivalry. This isn't a matter of whether we can share or whether we fight over those toys. This is salvation. Something wonderful has happened for those left outside in the dark. And we can bring it to those. We can celebrate with them. They are desperate for Christ, and it's up to us to bring it to them. So the resolution is left to us. How are we going to respond? Are we going to stay out in the cold and fight with God about what holiness means? About what cleanliness means? Or are we going to celebrate this salvation and continue to take it out into the